The silent watcher's Admiral Kethvar stood before the massive holographic display aboard the Kethran dreadnought Eternal Dominion, his four eyes studying the primitive blue world that hung suspended in the void. The planet's electromagnetic signatures painted a picture of chaos and disorder. Radio waves carried the sounds of conflict. Satellite imagery revealed countless territorial divisions, and their deep space monitoring had recorded over 300 active military conflicts in the past solar cycle alone. A perfect target, his tactical officer, Sub-Commander Zareth, commented as she manipulated the hologram to highlight Earth's major population centers. Divided, primitive, constantly at war with themselves. Our psychological analysts estimate complete planetary surrender within 2 rotations of their primary star. Kethvar's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. The Kethran Empire had conquered 47 worlds using this exact formula. Find a divided species, demonstrate superior firepower, accept their inevitable surrender, and integrate their resources into the ever-expanding empire. It was efficient, predictable, and profitable. What the Kethrans failed to understand was that they had never encountered a species like humanity. Captain Sarah Mitchell pressed her palm against the cool metal wall of Deep Space Monitoring Station Omega-7, feeling the subtle vibrations that ran through the structure. 24 hours ago, her routine assignment monitoring asteroid trajectories had become humanity's first line of defense against an alien invasion. The massive fleet approaching Earth moved with military precision, their energy signatures unlike anything in human records. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission from the lead vessel," reported Lieutenant Chen from the communications station. "Same message, different languages. They're definitely trying to communicate." Sarah nodded, grimly. The aliens had been broadcasting for 6 hours now, cycling through every major Earth language with mechanical precision. Each message was identical, a demand for immediate and unconditional surrender. What struck her most was not the demand itself, but the casual certainty with which it was delivered. These beings expected compliance as if it were a natural law of the universe. "Have you reached Earth Command?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. Admiral Harrison is coordinating the global response. All military forces worldwide are moving to DEFCON 1. Sarah almost smiled at the irony. For the first time in decades, every nation on Earth was united in purpose. The aliens demanding their surrender had accomplished what no diplomat or treaty had ever managed. They had given humanity a common enemy. Dr. Marcus Webb ran his fingers through his graying hair as he studied the alien transmission for the 100th time. As Earth's leading expert in xenopsychology, he had spent his career preparing for first contact. But nothing had prepared him for this level of arrogant certainty from an alien species. "They're treating us like children," he muttered to his assistant, Dr. Lisa Park, as they worked in their underground facility beneath MIT. "Listen to the linguistic patterns. Every phrase structure suggests they view this as a routine administrative procedure." Lisa looked up from her analysis of the alien ship configurations. "Maybe that's exactly how they see it. Look at their approach vectors, Marcus. Perfect geometric formations, synchronized movements, textbook military doctrine. They've done this before." Marcus nodded slowly, pieces of a terrifying puzzle clicking into place. "They're following a playbook. They've probably used these exact same tactics dozens of times before, maybe hundreds. Find a divided world, demand surrender, conquer, and move on." "But that's good news, isn't it?" Lisa asked. "If they're following a predictable pattern, we can counter it." Marcus stared at the holographic display showing Earth's current military deployments. Tanks, aircraft, naval vessels, all arranged in defensive positions around major cities. Standard military response to an invasion threat. "That's just it, Lisa. They're expecting standard responses. They've calculated for governments that think like governments, militaries that act like militaries, populations that behave like civilized species. And," Marcus's expression grew grim, "humanity isn't civilized. We're barely controlled predators who learn to cooperate just enough to reach the stars. They have no idea what they're about to wake up." Elena Rodriguez had been working the night shift at the Tesla Gigafactory in Nevada when the emergency broadcasts began. As one of the facility's senior electrical engineers, she had immediately understood the implications when the government requisitioned every major manufacturing plant in the country. They weren't just preparing for war, they were preparing for a war unlike anything humanity had ever fought. The factory floor buzzed with activity as workers retrofitted production lines at breakneck speed. Electric vehicle batteries were being modified to power experimental energy weapons. Solar panel technology was being adapted for military applications. The same innovative spirit that had revolutionized clean energy was now being weaponized against an alien threat. "Elena, we need your expertise on the power coupling system," called out Dr. James Morrison, the military scientist overseeing the conversion. "The prototypes are drawing too much power too quickly. We need sustainable energy delivery for extended combat operations." Elena examined the weapon prototype, her mind already racing through potential solutions. "You're thinking about this wrong, Doctor. You're trying to create a sustained beam weapon like a laser, but what if we treated it more like lightning? Lightning, high voltage, short duration bursts, minimal power consumption, maximum impact. Nature's been perfecting this approach for millions of years." She moved to a whiteboard, sketching rapidly. "We could create capacitor arrays that build charge over time, then release it all at once, like a planetary-scale taser." Morrison stared at the diagrams, his expression shifting from confusion to excitement. "Elena, you might have just changed the course of this war." Aboard the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Kethvar reviewed the final invasion preparations with growing confidence. His fleet of 300 vessels had taken position around Earth's primary moon, well within striking distance of the planet's major population centers. According to their intelligence, the humans had roughly 72 hours of food and water reserves stockpiled in their urban centers. After that, social collapse would begin and surrender would follow inevitably. "Sir, we're detecting increased electromagnetic activity from the planet's surface," reported Subcommander Zareth. "Industrial facilities worldwide have increased production by approximately 400%. Kethvar's mandibles clicked dismissively. "Desperate final preparations. It's a common response pattern among species facing conquest. They frantically increase military production in the final hours before surrender. It's actually an encouraging sign." What Kethvar failed to understand was that humans didn't prepare for surrender. They prepared for war. The first Catherine strike came at dawn, Greenwich Mean Time. Massive energy beams lanced down from orbit, targeting major military installations, government centers, and communication hubs. The attacks were precisely calculated to eliminate command structures, while preserving infrastructure and population centers for future integration into the Catherine Empire. London, Moscow, Washington, D.C., Beijing, New Delhi. Each capital experienced the same surgical precision. Government buildings vaporized, military compounds reduced to molten slag, communication towers severed. Within 6 hours, the traditional command structure of human civilization had been effectively decapitated. The Kethrins waited for the inevitable surrender broadcasts. Instead, something unprecedented happened. Captain Sarah Mitchell watched from her space station as emergency protocols activated across the globe. Rather than surrendering, human military forces began operating under decentralized command structures. Individual base commanders made independent tactical decisions. Local militias activated. Civilian populations began coordinating through social media networks and amateur radio systems. "Captain, I'm detecting massive power surges from manufacturing centers worldwide," Lieutenant Chen reported. "Whatever they're building down there, they're putting everything they have into it." Sarah nodded, feeling a fierce pride in her species. The aliens had targeted Earth's head, expecting the body to die, but humanity had no single head to cut off. They were a hydra, and each severed connection grew back stronger. Dr. Marcus Webb emerged from his underground facility to find Boston transformed. Military checkpoints had been replaced by civilian volunteer stations. Local universities had become weapons research centers. Children were learning to operate emergency communication systems, while adults modified everything from farming equipment to construction machinery for combat applications. "It's remarkable," he told his assistant as they watched a group of MIT students successfully test-fire a railgun built from particle accelerator components. They attacked our governments and expected us to collapse. But they forgot something crucial about human psychology. What's that? Marcus smiled grimly as an elderly woman walked past carrying what appeared to be a modified welding torch. We don't fight for our governments. We fight for each other. They didn't declare war on our leaders. They declared war on our families, our children, our future. And that, my dear Lisa, was their first and final mistake. Elena Rodriguez stood on the factory floor, surrounded by the fruits of 36 hours of non-stop human ingenuity. Rows of energy weapons lined the production facility, each one representing a quantum leap in human technology. But more than that, each weapon represented something the Kethrans couldn't calculate or predict. The fury of a species that refused to kneel. "Ma'am, we're ready for field testing," reported one of the technicians. "The first batch of lightning strike units are charged and operational." Elena looked through the factory windows at the night sky, where alien ships hung like malevolent stars. Soon those ships would learn why every predator species in Earth's history had eventually learned to fear the naked apes who had claimed dominion over their world. "Begin field testing," she ordered. "It's time to show our visitors what humans do when you threaten our home." Admiral Kethavar stood before his tactical display, studying reports that made no logical sense. Rather than surrendering, human resistance had actually increased after the decapitation strikes. Worse, their technological capabilities seemed to be advancing in real time. Energy signatures from the planet's surface showed power levels that had been impossible just days earlier. "Sir, our ground reconnaissance drones are detecting massive industrial conversion projects," Sub-Commander Zareth reported, her voice tight with concern. "They're not just modifying existing weapons, they're creating entirely new categories of military technology." "Impossible," Kethvar snapped. "Primitive species don't achieve technological breakthroughs under stress. They collapse, they surrender, they beg for mercy. We've seen this pattern 47 times. "Yes, sir. But we've never seen anything like this." Kethvar stared at the blue world below, feeling the first stirrings of an emotion he hadn't experienced in decades: doubt. The humans were supposed to be defeated by now, their leadership destroyed, their resistance crumbling. Instead, they seemed to be evolving in real time, adapting to challenges faster than his analysts could catalog the changes. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Kethavar began to wonder if the Kethran Empire had made a terrible mistake. The fire within. The first lightning strike weapon fired at 0347 hours, Pacific Standard Time. Elena Rodriguez watched from the Tesla facility's observation deck as a brilliant arc of electricity reached up from the Nevada desert and touched one of the smaller Kethran scouting vessels. For a moment, the alien ship hung motionless in the darkness. Then its lights flickered, died, and the vessel began its long tumble toward Earth's surface. Across the globe, similar scenes played out as humanity revealed the fruits of its desperate innovation. In Germany, modified particle accelerators became planet-based railguns. In Japan, fusion reactors were retrofitted to power energy weapons that could reach low orbit. In Brazil, teams of engineers had somehow weaponized their space launch capabilities, turning peaceful rockets into kinetic bombardment systems. But it wasn't just the technology that shocked the Kethran fleet. It was the coordination. Captain Sarah Mitchell floated in the zero gravity of her observation bubble, watching as her species transformed before her eyes, without central command, without government coordination, without any of the traditional power structures the Kethrans had targeted. Humanity had somehow organized itself into the most effective resistance network in galactic history. "Captain, we're receiving tactical updates from 17 different resistance cells," reported Lieutenant Chen. "The Australian group has successfully reverse-engineered Kethran shield technology. The Scandinavian coalition has developed stealth capabilities, and the African Union teams have created some kind of adaptive ammunition that reconfigures itself based on target composition." Sarah shook her head in amazement. "How long have these groups been operational?" 48 hours, ma'am. Most of Them formed spontaneously after the first attacks, 48 hours. In less than 2 days, without coordination or leadership, scattered groups of humans had achieved technological breakthroughs that should have taken decades. The Kethrans had unwittingly conducted the greatest accelerated evolution experiment in galactic history. Dr. Marcus Webb stood in the ruins of Harvard University, but destruction hadn't stopped learning. Students and faculty had simply moved underground, literally and figuratively. The basement levels had become a command center where psychologists, anthropologists, and linguists worked around the clock to decode Kethran behavior patterns. "I've been analyzing their tactical responses," Webb explained to the Joint Chiefs of Staff via encrypted video conference. "The Kethrans aren't adapting. They keep using the same strategies that worked on other worlds. But those worlds were populated by species that thought like civilizations. We don't." General Patricia Hayes, speaking from her mobile command bunker, leaned forward. "Explain." "Every species they've conquered has had centralized authority, predictable social hierarchies, logical resource distribution. When you destroy the head of such a society, the body dies. But humans are different. We're not really a civilization at all. We're barely controlled chaos that learned to cooperate when threatened." Webb gestured to a display showing global resistance activities. "Look at this pattern. No central planning, no unified command structure, no logical resource allocation. We're fighting this war like a distributed organism. Cut off one part, and 10 more adapt to fill the gap. And that gives us an advantage? General, it makes us incomprehensible to them. They're trying to fight a civilization. Instead, they're facing something that doesn't exist in their database, a species that gets more dangerous when you hurt it." Elena Rodriguez's second prototype exceeded all expectations. The Mark II lightning strike system didn't just disable Kethran vessels, it seemed to learn from each engagement. The weapon's AI component, reverse-engineered from salvaged alien technology, adapted its targeting algorithms in real time. "Elena, you need to see this," called Dr. Morrison from the analysis station. "The weapon isn't just hitting targets, it's predicting where they'll move next." Elena examined the firing solution data, her excitement growing. "It's not just learning their technology. It's learning their psychology. Look at these patterns." The holographic display showed Kethran fleet movements overlaid with successful strike predictions. They move in formation patterns that maximize efficiency and minimize risk. Classic military doctrine for a species that values order and hierarchy. But that makes them predictable. "Predictable to us," Morrison added. "But we're not predictable to them." Elena nodded, understanding dawning. "We need to share this algorithm with every resistance cell on the planet. If their behavior is predictable, we can turn this war from a defensive action into a coordinated offensive." Admiral Kethvar's confidence had evaporated completely. His tactical displays showed impossible data. Human technology was advancing exponentially. Their coordination was improving despite the lack of central command. And most disturbing of all, they seemed to be enjoying themselves. "Sir, we've intercepted human communications," Sub-Commander Zareth reported, her voice strained. "They're celebrating. Celebrating their defeat?" "No, sir, they're celebrating the challenge. Listen to this." She activated the audio feed and the bridge filled with human voices. "Did you see that shot from the Australian team? Perfect targeting. The Brazilians just took out 2 scouts with a single rocket. My grandmother's engineering team in Detroit just invented something they're calling a plasma shotgun. I don't even know what that means, but it works." Kethvar stared at the speakers in disbelief. These creatures were treating an invasion of their homeworld like some kind of competitive sporting event. They're having fun." "Yes, sir. Combat stress appears to make them more creative, not less. Our psychological models have no framework for this behavior." The Admiral's 4 eyes focused on the tactical display, watching as another of his vessels succumbed to a weapon that hadn't existed a week earlier. "Sub-Commander, compile a report for the High Command. We may need to reconsider our approach to this system." But it was already too late for reconsideration. The turning point came when Captain Sarah Mitchell's space station detected an opportunity the Kethrans hadn't anticipated. Their command ship, the Eternal Dominion, had positioned itself behind Earth's moon, assuming the massive celestial body would provide protection from ground-based weapons. They hadn't calculated for human ingenuity. "Elena, this is Sarah Mitchell at Deep Space Station Omega-7. I have a targeting solution for their command vessel, but I need maximum power projection." Elena's voice crackled back through the comm system. "Sarah, we're way ahead of you. Every power grid on the planet is being rerouted to 17 key firing positions. We're about to turn Earth into the largest directed energy weapon in human history. And if it doesn't work, then we'll try something else. That's what we do." The coordinated strike began at noon, Universal Time. Power grids across 6 continents fed energy into a network of weapons that had been improvised, invented, and deployed in less than a week. The combined energy output of human civilization focused through 17 different technological approaches toward a single target. The Eternal Dominion didn't just lose power. It ceased to function as a spacecraft entirely. Every system, from life support to propulsion, simply stopped working. The massive vessel became a lifeless hulk, drifting in lunar orbit. But the attack had a secondary effect that no human had planned. It broadcast a message to every Kethran vessel simultaneously. Dr. Webb had been right about human psychology, but he'd been wrong about one crucial detail. Humans weren't just dangerous when threatened. They were terrifying when they discovered they were winning. Within hours of the flagship's destruction, human resistance cells began coordinating offensive operations. The species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of warfare against each other had found a new target for their collective creativity. Kethran ground forces found themselves facing opponents who fought without rules, strategies, or predictable patterns. Human fighters used psychological warfare, technological innovation, and tactical improvisation that defied every military doctrine in the Galactic database. A group of retired school teachers in Kansas had somehow modified crop dusting equipment into aerial combat platforms. Urban gangs in Detroit had welded alien armor plating onto civilian vehicles, creating mobile weapons platforms that struck without warning. Marine biologists in Florida had learned to use their dolphin communication research to jam Kethran tactical frequencies. Each resistance cell operated independently but shared information freely. Every success was immediately broadcast to every other group, creating a collective learning experience that accelerated human technological development beyond anything in recorded galactic history. The final engagement lasted 18 minutes. By the time it ended, the Kethran Empire had lost 60% of its invasion fleet. The survivors faced a choice: immediate surrender or complete annihilation by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Admiral Kethvar found himself broadcasting the first surrender in Kethran military history. "Attention Earth forces." His message began, transmitted on all human communication frequencies. "The Kethran Empire formally requests cessation of hostilities. We acknowledge our error in judgment." The response came not from any government or military authority, but from Dr. Marcus Webb, speaking for a species that had proven itself beyond any doubt. "Admiral, we appreciate your surrender. However, we need to establish some ground rules for future galactic relations. Earth is not available for conquest. Earth is not available for subjugation. Earth is not available for any form of aggressive action whatsoever." "We understand," Kethvar replied quickly. "We will inform the High Command that this system is to be avoided." "You misunderstand, Admiral. We're not asking you to avoid us. We're asking you to inform every species in the galaxy about what happens when you declare war on humanity." Webb's voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. "You see, Admiral, you've done us a tremendous favor. For the first time in our species' history, we're completely united. We have a common purpose, shared technology, and a proven ability to defend ourselves. You've accidentally created something the galaxy has never seen before: a unified human civilization with advanced military capabilities and a very long memory. You've also given us a new perspective on our place in the universe. We're no longer just residents of Earth. We're the guardians of Earth, and we take that responsibility very seriously." The transmission ended with words that would become legend throughout the galaxy. "Thank you for the lesson, Admiral. Class dismissed." As the surviving Kethran vessels fled Earth's solar system, They carried with them the news that would reshape galactic politics forever. Humanity was no longer a primitive species ripe for conquest. They had become something far more dangerous, a unified predator species with advanced technology and a proven willingness to use it. Captain Sarah Mitchell floated in her observation station, watching the alien fleet disappear into the darkness between stars. Around her, the lights of Earth blazed brighter than ever, powered by technologies that hadn't existed a week earlier. Elena Rodriguez stood in her factory, surrounded by weapons that would never be used for conquest, only for defense. The lightning strike systems would become the foundation for humanity's first planetary defense network. Dr. Marcus Webb sat in his underground laboratory, composing the first comprehensive report on xenopsychology ever written by a species that had actually survived first contact with hostile aliens. And across the globe, 7 billion humans looked up at the stars with a new understanding. They were no longer alone in the universe, but they were no longer helpless either. The galaxy had been put on notice. Earth was off limits. Not because humanity was peaceful, but because they had proven beyond any doubt what happened to those who mistook human civilization for human weakness. The fire within had been awakened, and it would burn in the darkness between stars for as long as humanity drew breath.